I'm going to try to cover these next two sections of Ghana and Mali in one video, but depending on how long I talk, it may be split up into two. So let's get started. So we have talked about the Kingdom of Ghana. Around 700 AD, slowly but surely, the Kingdom of Ghana begins to take form from a collection of smaller chieftainships. The word Ghana means warrior king and was the title of its leader. Several factors spur the rise of power of the Kingdom of Ghana. Ghana was close to a key source of wealth, and we know that wealth was gold. In the 4th century, Ghana benefited from the introduction of the camel from North Africa, and with the camels, trans-Saharan trade and economic growth became easier. And in those days, a camel caravan could be immense, with as many as 1,000 camels or as few as a dozen. The people of Ghana also developed a new resource for this region, iron technology. And with iron, farmers had stronger tools to plow the ground and grow more crops, while soldiers had stronger weapons for guarding and expanding the territory. Soldiers were needed to police borders so that the king could maintain his control over the gold trade. A writer from the time of Ghana asserted that when the king calls up his army, he can put 200,000 men in the field. More than 40,000 of them are archers. The kingdom's golden wealth was widely known. A Muslim writer living in a faraway Spain described what he had heard of the king's court, and the title of the king was Ghana, from which the name of the kingdom had been taken. So, as you read this on the screen, try painting a picture in your mind of the court. The writing is vivid with detailed descriptions, and one of the enormous benefits of using a primary source to study history is that it can make history come alive. So I'll read it to you and reflect upon it. Only the king and his heir apparent may wear sewn clothes. All other people wear robes of cotton, silk, or brocade, according to their means. All of them shave their beards, and women shave their heads. And the king adorned themselves like a woman wearing necklaces round his neck and bracelets on his forearms. And he puts a high cap decorated with gold and wrapped in a turban of fine cotton. He sits in an audience or to hear his grievances against officials in a domed pavilion, around which stand 10 horses covered with gold embossed materials. Behind the king stands 10 pages, holding shields and swords decorated with gold, and on his right are the sons of the vassal kings of his country, wearing splendid garments and their hair plaited with gold. The governor of the city sits on the ground before the king, and around him are ministers seated likewise. At the door of the pavilion are dogs of excellent pedigree, who hardly ever leave the place where their king is, guarding him. Round their necks they wear collars of gold and silver, studded with a number of balls of the same metal. The audience is announced by beating of a drum, which they call duba, made from a long log. The king of Ghana made his kingdom a welcome place for different religions, and he adhered to the traditional religion of his people, which was a belief in one supreme God. Followers of this religion also believed that there were other lesser gods and that their ancestors remained in touch with the world. The king believed that respect for other religions was important, and he wanted Muslims to feel at home, including traders who came from the north. So Ghana's capital had two sections, one for visiting Muslims and the other where the king and his people lived. And in the Muslim section, there were 12 mosques, and in addition, the king had a mosque built next to his court so that Muslims would find it convenient to pray while visiting the court. To show his respect for Islam, the king did not require Muslims to kneel before him, as his own people did, and instead Muslims who came before him merely clapped their hands. Thus, religious tolerance was an important value in Ghana. Ghana had a number of cities and towns, some of which are still active today. Archaeologists are only beginning to understand and learn about ancient Ghana. Many archaeologists believe that the modern town of Kumbisela was once the capital of Ghana, but some are less certain. The reason that we're uncertain is because we have yet to uncover what would even resemble a king's palace there. We know that it was once a large, thriving town in ancient Ghana. Buried ruins of spacious stone buildings, roads, mosques, and space for markets have been uncovered, but still no king's palace. More research and archaeological digging are needed. The city of Timbuktu is shown here, one of the ancient cities of Ghana. So what did the hierarchy look like in Ghana? Well, we know the king ruled over his people, and he also ruled over lesser kings or vassals, and that these lesser kings paid tribute or taxes to the king of Ghana, who in turn would protect them. Often the lesser king's sons would be raised at the Ghana's court, ensuring both loyalty and a good education. This pattern of mighty kings with vassal kings was similar to patterns of governance in other parts of the medieval world. The king of Ghana was treated with enormous respect, and people approaching him knelt and sprinkled dust over their heads before speaking to him. And those living in the royal city include merchants, nobles, ironsmiths, slaves, soldiers, priests, imams, and more. Most people, however, lived in small towns and villages distanced from the royal court. And there, people farmed, they grew grains and other foods, vegetables, sweets such as dates. So, what caused the decline of Ghana? Well, Ghana's wealth in gold and trade is going to make those around them jealous, and because they want to control the resources. So, a successful attack on one of Ghana's main cities came in 1076 by a group of North African Muslims known as the Almoravids. And with the loss of this city and then others, Ghana gradually declines in importance until the kingdom was no more. Children across West Africa today know about this ancient kingdom, and in fact, one of Africa's countries today chose Ghana as its name. In 1957, the man who became the first president of this new modern country stated, "The name Ghana is rooted deeply in ancient African history. It kindles the imagination of modern African youth, the grandeur and achievements of this great medieval civilization, which our ancestors developed. It is from this rich historical background that the name Ghana has been proposed as the new name for the Gold Coast upon attainment of independence. We take pride in the name, not out of romanticism, but as an inspiration for the future." The Europeans who colonized this country also recognize the link to the past, and though they don't call the country Ghana, they do choose to call it the Gold Coast. Thus, the colonists hoped to control the same wealth and gold that had made the Kingdom of Ghana famous. Some of the traditions of royal gold live on. Inside the country of Ghana today, a country once called the Gold Coast, lies the Kingdom of Asante. Today, their king, like the ancient king of Ghana, wears lavish array of gold jewelry. Gold is still mined in modern Ghana, and while the modern country of Ghana was inspired by ancient Ghana, the two nations do not occupy the same territory. The modern nation of Ghana is south and east of where the ancient kingdom was located. Some discussion questions, and then we will move on. Read the primary source document on slide 31. Why do you think this document is reliable as a source of information on Ghana? That is, why do you think it can be trusted as accurate in its description of the court of the King of Ghana? In what ways might it not be reliable or accurate in its description? And we'll use some critical thinking skills there. Number 2, al-Bakri's description of the court of the King of Ghana in slide 31 does not describe Ghana itself all that much. However, it does describe how huge the empire was. What sort of details in the description suggest or imply that Ghana must have been a large empire? And number 3, Ghana's kings were not Muslims, but they made efforts to welcome Muslims and were tolerant of religious differences between Muslims and others in Ghana. What reasons might have encouraged the kingdoms to show this toleration? So about 200 years after Ghana's decline, we get a new kingdom. This new kingdom, founded in 1235, comes to be when a ruthless leader is defeated in battle. The name of this new kingdom was Mali, and Sundiata was its leader. This kingdom grew as Sundiata united small chieftainships and conquered others. Lesser kings, or vassals, are going to pay taxes and swear allegiance to him. And gathered within his kingdom is going to be the land that was formerly Ghana. Since the 13th century, royal historians have passed down the story of the founding of Mali. These historians are called griots, and their words are respected, as the famous griot explains. "My word is pure and free of all untruth. It is the word of my father. It is the word of my father's father. I will give you my father's word just as I received them." Royal griots do not know what lying is, and this comes from Sundiata, an epic of old Mali. So oral history is one of our resources of knowledge about Mali. Because griots are trained from childhood to memorize and then recount the history of ancient Mali, their words are very trusted. And their elegant telling of the history of Sundiata's life is an epic. Because of the value that was placed on oral telling, usually with music, this story was not written down at all for about 700 years. Only in 1960 was the world outside of Mali able to read this remarkable epic. And of course, over the centuries, a few changes have crept in to the accounts, but the fundamentals there are still true. Here you hear one griot telling of Sundiata. I'm not going to read that to you. If you want to read it, you can. We know that successful kingdoms require leadership, and we've already kind of looked at Mansa Musa. But to be powerful, a kingdom needs more than mere wealth. It requires good leadership. So Mali was led by gifted leaders, among them Sundiata and later Mansa Musa. As a child, Sundiata proved his worthiness to be a king. When he was young, he couldn't walk, and he dragged himself along the ground by his hands, and his mother despaired for this child that she loved and believed would be king. Sundiata overcomes his physical disability, but then he had to prove his moral worthiness. Three witches that wanted to kill Sundiata came to the night to steal vegetables to make poison from his mother's garden, and when he heard them, instead of harming them, he welcomed them, urging them to take all they needed. And they left marveling at this courage and kindness, deciding that they could do nothing against such virtue. So Mansa Musa demonstrated the qualities of a leader. He was a devout Muslim. He wanted to make the Hajj, or the pilgrimage to the holy city of Mecca, a pilgrimage every Muslim in the world makes. Mecca was thousands of miles from Mali, and a journey would require being away from Mali for over 2 years. Mansa Musa could make the journey in confidence, knowing that the leadership and policies he had put into place would carry on until he returned. In fact, news of Mansa Musa's extraordinary journey is going to spread both to Europe and around the Muslim world. It's here in the Catalan, the Spanish map of the 14th century. Mansa Musa is celebrated as the royalty that he was, that you see in the map there. Notice what the artist does to convey his wealth and his power. His throne, his scepter, his crown, and his robe are the royal color of purple. And notice, too, the orb of gold symbolizing his wealth. He looks towards a Berber, a North African, coming by camel across the Sahara Desert to buy gold. And at its core, this drawing demonstrates that Europeans perceived an African king as equal of any European royalty. During the Middle Ages, it was not just cartographers, but also European artists who depicted what these Africans looked like. After all, European gold came from West Africa, and in East Africa, Ethiopia was a Christian kingdom. Many medieval European artists showed African Christians, and this emphasizes that Christianity was a religion that embraced all people. And for example, the statue of an African saint who died at the Crusades was handsomely carved and placed in front of a German cathedral. Here it's Saint Maurice, who died in the Crusades and whose relics are buried in the Cathedral of Magdeburg. By the time of Mali, the leadership was Muslim and no longer followed a traditional West African faith as the Kingdom of Ghana did. Islam came to Mali through peaceful conversion and not by conquest. First, the leaders and most city dwellers are going to convert, and much later the population as a whole becomes Muslim. The religion's going to spread through good relations with North African Muslims and through trade. Islam strengthened the trading relations with North Africa because both sides in the trade follow the same religion and the same set of rules based in Islam about business conduct. So Arabic could be used as a common language of trade as well as of religion. Islam has always placed a stress on education. Thus, when Mansa Musa went to Mecca, he stopped along the way to meet scholars and to purchase books, and when he returned to Mali, he establishes the University of Sankore with his local and visiting scholars. Also, large, beautiful mosques were also built in all the cities of Mali, and their styles are distinctively West African, and today these mosques continue to call people to prayer. The wealth and able leadership of Mali made it possible for the kingdom to expand, and so Mali became much larger than Ghana had ever been. As the Catalan image showed, Mali's wealth was tied to its role in the gold trade. So gold was taken across the desert along known routes with stops at oases for water and refreshment. And when Mansa Musa made his Hajj, it was said that he took along thousands of servants and slaves and soldiers and merchants and probably thousands of camels as well. 80 loads of gold were carried, as well as food from the fertile Niger River region. And once he got to Cairo, the Mansa means king, stayed for several months. And while he was there, he gave gifts and paid for other goods with such quantities of gold that the value of gold dropped significantly in Cairo. So huge influx of gold there. And it took 3 years for the gold's value to return to normal. Mali was not only rich, but it was also led by a skilled ruler. One story of Mansa Musa's travels illustrates this skill. And then it goes that while he was staying in Cairo, the Sultan wished to meet Mansa Musa, and having heard of his wealth and piety, the Mansa refused at first because, as a king, he didn't want to follow the custom in Cairo of bowing before the Sultan and kissing the crown. Instead, he sent the Sultan away with many loads of gold and other valuables. And the Sultan, in return, sent a man to insist on a visit with his fellow ruler. And then Mansa could hardly reside in Cairo without paying a courtesy call on the Sultan. And so Mansa Musa met with the Sultan. When he arrived, he said in a loud voice, "I make obedience to God who created me." And then he bowed, but as he did, he faced southeast towards Mecca. Thus he bowed for God and not for the Sultan. Also, the kingdom of Mali is going to decline just like the kingdom of Ghana. No kingdom lasts forever. And so Mali had great resources, which others envied, but did not always have fine leadership. And in the mid-1400s, a series of weak kings let the defense of the borders decline. And distant cities fell under the control of others, and gradually Mali is going to splinter into a series of small, separate cities. Finally, a leader from the east marshaled a large army to control parts of Mali, and this new kingdom became known as Songhai. As Mali was larger than Ghana, so the kingdom of Songhai was larger than Mali. But Mali lives on, and it hasn't been forgotten. And today, the modern country of Mali has taken on the old name with pride. The first president of Mali, Modibo Keita, is himself a descendant of the famed king Sundiata. So, a later president of Mali was an archaeologist who promoted the knowledge of Mali's great past. Griots across West Africa continue to tell and sing the story of Sundiata, and their CDs are sold in the U.S. and elsewhere. Though it's a little bit outdated for you guys. Malians also take pride in their history, and so the kingdom lives on. So, in summary, geography mattered in terms of growth and accomplishments in both kingdoms. Leadership mattered as well. The failure of leadership led to the decline of both the kingdoms of Ghana and then Mali. Ghana and Mali were wealthy civilizations based on their agricultural surplus and their control of gold. These two kingdoms were known widely and were a part of a larger world of trade, culture, and religion. And Ghana and Mali live on today in a variety of ways. Gold continues to be mined, Islam is practiced, and the names of these two kingdoms have taken life. So, what do you think? Human history has been characterized by this rhythm of growth and decline that we see from the beginning of time. What can the modern world learn from the rise and fall of these once great African civilizations? Have some discussion questions for you. Griots have orally passed down the story and the rise of Sundiata as the first king of Mali. There are good reasons to trust the accuracy of the griots. There are also reasons to be careful in fully accepting their accounts. Explain the reasons for the trusting of the griot's account and for being careful about fully accepting these accounts. Number 2. Read the stories about Sundiata and Mansa Musa associated with the slide 44 of the PowerPoint. What do these stories tell you about the kind of leadership that Malians admired? In other words, what do they reveal about Malian values? Okay, and the last one, sorry. Unlike in Ghana, Mali's population adopted Islam to a great extent. In what ways did the widespread adoption of Islam strengthen Mali's trading traditions with North Africa? If you'll reflect upon those, if you have any questions, need any help answering, just let me know.